We'll move on to the next session of the day by Dr. Durga. He will be talking about abstracts and keywords and title of a manuscript. Over to Dr. Durga.
Good evening, colleagues. I'm just starting to share my screen. I shall be discussing about abstract title, keywords, and references. So basically, what I would like to say at the beginning is that the value of a research paper is reflected in the number of citations that it eventually gets. So I think it will be very clear which of these two research papers would be likely to be cited more. The Mona Lisa figure, the original one, or a faded version of the same. So similarly, you must try to present your manuscript in this way rather than this way so that it gets more citations and your research gets its appropriate value. So to start with, we'll just go to a sample abstract which we shall be coming across multiple times during the presentation. As you can see, this has a title, the authors, the abstract, then there are some keywords mentioned as well. I've written it separately because it was not coming along with it. So coming to straight to the title. So would you prefer a title that says something like this or something like this? We'll try to answer this question in the next few slides. A title should accurately but concisely reflect the gist of your paper. It should not be too long or else it would be difficult to keep the reader's attention. And it should be such that a person scanning through the literature should be able to identify your study as relevant. So preferably if you have some important findings, you could possibly include that in the title. An ideal title should be accurate, brief, clear, declarative, engaged, and focused. Accuracy, clarity, and focus, these help to advertise your work in a single sentence as best as possible. And also you need to keep in mind that there are non-human readers for your work, such as search portals like Google Scholar or using PubMed. Therefore, these attributes should help your non-human readers to identify your work. It is best to avoid including abbreviations that are not standard ones, particularly in specialty fields, because people may not identify those abbreviations as related to a particular work. For example, most of you in this presentation would understand what CYC-induced press in SLE is, but somebody who is not a pediatric rheumatologist or who doesn't normally treat patients with lupus might not understand this. So a better title would be a cyclophosphamide-induced posterior reversible encephalopathy syndrome in lupus, a case report, which was actually a title of a case report. Next, we have this title, which I would like all of you to think over a minute. Factors predicting RF in DM, a prospective study. So you might think that this is pretty straightforward, or I could think that this is factors predicting renal failure in diabetics, a prospective study, or for all it, it could be factors predicting registration of marriages in Denmark, a prospective study, or it could be factors predicting respiratory failure in dermatomyositis. So using short forms like this, although they may appear obvious to a rheumatologist, respiratory failure in dermatomyositis, it may actually not be obvious to a non-specialty crowd. Therefore, most of the readers of your manuscript may not actually get the gist of it or be able to identify it if you use too many abbreviations or non-standard abbreviations in your title. And even for that matter, DM could mean a standard abbreviation for diabetes mellitus, but it also could be dermatomyositis. So just need to be careful about using abbreviations in general. Brevity, it is good to avoid unnecessary jargon. For example, this could have been a title, double-blind randomized controlled trial of more than 10,000 patients with coronary artery disease assessing the effectiveness of canakinumab in reducing recurrence of coronary artery events compared to placebo. or the actual title of the NEJM paper was Anti-Inflammatory Therapy with Canakinumab for Atherosclerotic Disease, this catches the attention and gives you the information required. So it will attract the appropriate readers to read through your paper rather than this kind of a large title which gives too many details. A title may be declarative or non-declarative. Declarative meaning you try to give a gist of your results, or non-declarative, you just try to tell what is important for the reader to understand what is being looked at. For example, it could be something like cyclophosphamide versus placebo in scleroderma associated interstitial lung disease. Or it could be cyclophosphamide is a wonder drug in scleroderma associated interstitial lung disease. Obviously, in this case, this is a much more toned down and much more decent title. This is something which is more likely to attract readers than this kind of a title. You must try to engage, you must try to be snappy and to the point and reflect the main results of your work, emphasize the novelty and importance of your findings if you're using a declarative title. Or if you're using a non-declarative title, you must try to give the gist of what you're looking at. Somebody should be able to identify if it is relevant to their research, to their clinical practice. For example, this kind of a title could be considered as verbose, whereas this kind of a title could be considered as not giving enough information, whereas this is a more effective title, Effect of Child Influenza Vaccination on Infection Rates in Communities, a randomized trial. So this is an effective title. It is short, easy to understand, and conveys the important aspects of the research. The abstract is a summary of your work. While submitting a paper for consideration at a journal, at a conference, you would most often only submit the abstract. It should present the gist of your findings while not being too long. And while reviewing a paper, an editor or peer reviewer often read only your abstract at the beginning to give an impression before they decide whether to read the whole of the manuscript. So it's a very important opportunity to impress upon your reader. And you must present enough detail in the abstract to stand alone from the manuscript and make sense for the reader without reading the entire paper. Abstracts could be of various types. They could be structured, like broken down into sections akin to a full paper, or could be unstructured. Often review articles would have unstructured abstracts, except for systematic reviews, which should have structured abstracts. And generally the type of abstract required depends on the requirement of the individual journal. So again, I would like to emphasize here, and I'll come to this point again, read the instructions of a journal carefully. They give you a lot of information, and if you have read your instructions carefully and formatted the paper accordingly, it is likely to give an impression of being professional to the reader of the paper, that is the editor and the reviewer, and therefore to some extent increases the chance of getting your paper into the journal. When to write an abstract is another question that people often ask. You could either write it at the beginning or at the end after completing your manuscript. I personally prefer to write the abstract at the end after completing my manuscript, because by then I know what's important and what's not. But then it's a personal preference. The length of an abstract could vary from journal to journal or from conference to conference. It could be generally between 250 to 350 words. Always check with the instructions of the journal and need to strictly adhere to this. And these limits are generally those that are set by indexing agencies, or else the indexing agency may just cut your abstract abruptly at a particular limit, beyond which it cannot present that data on the website of the indexing agency. A structured abstract would have a background or introduction, very briefly, just a sentence or maximum 2 short sentences. Methods broadly present the methodology, not like the detailed methodology that you would present in a manuscript, and avoid unnecessary detail. For example, in a study of T lymphocyte profile in rheumatoid arthritis, don't write all the antibodies used for the flow cytometry with their manufacturer name and country of origin. Reserve these details for the main manuscript. The results form the bulk of your abstract along with the methods, and definitely address the primary objectives and major or important findings with respect to secondary objectives. You may not be able to provide the entire information. and present statistical comparisons if relevant for the primary objective at least. Conclusion should be 1 or 2 sentences. Present your major findings and the relevance or potential relevance in the broader context of the existing literature. So information which should be ideally available in the methods section of a manuscript is what was the research design, what was the clinical diagnosis, what was the setting of the study, how the patients were sampled, what was the sample size. But a lot of these details may not actually be required in the abstract. You need to sort out what you want to present in the abstract and what you want to keep in the main paper. Certain details that should not be there in the abstract. You should generally, abstracts won't have bibliographic references or details about laboratory or other assessments, details about the statistical methods employed and the software used, unless there is a specific reason to provide these details in the abstract itself. Socio-demographic details, unless really relevant to understand the findings. Details about value of a statistical criteria. For example, you could just say here that chi-square value less than 0.001 in the abstract. Details you could present in the main manuscript. So the abstract that we had initially seen, this is a modified version of the same. Here it says objective is to evaluate a vasodilator in Raynaud's phenomena. Methods, patients with severe Raynaud's despite being on vasodilators. And results, it says 25 patients were recruited, and then it gives some results and finally says improved symptoms of Raynaud's in scleroderma. Now go back to the original abstract. The object was to evaluate the efficacy of tadalafil as an add-on therapy in secondary Raynaud's resistant to vasodilators. Methods, patients with scleroderma and MCTD having 4 or more attacks per week. You see how clearly defined the inclusion criteria are. Results, there is much more detail provided. And conclusion is tadalafil as add-on therapy improves symptoms of Raynaud's, heals and prevents new digital ulcers, and improves quality of life in patients with resistant secondary Raynaud's. So obviously this is the abstract from the published paper, which has more than 140 citations as of today. And you can see how a good abstract can go a long way towards presenting the important findings of this paper, rather than a shoddy abstract like this, which would just provide very superficial details and not really attract the readers to read the whole paper. Another important point in this abstract, although not directly related to the talk, is that clinical trial registration. As of now, clinical trial registration is mandatory for every trial that is submitted for publication. And that is something you must keep in mind before embarking on a clinical trial. It must be pre-registered because post-registration is almost impossible today. Keywords, you are generally asked to provide 4 or 6 keywords at the beginning of manuscript submission. These are used to identify your article in a literature search. And it's critical to choose those keywords which represent the subject of your study as well as the main emphasis of your findings. Example, in a study of the use of methotrexate in rheumatoid arthritis assessing clinical and radiographic progression, appropriate keywords could be methotrexate, rheumatoid arthritis, health assessment questionnaire, radiographic progression. Inappropriate keywords would be epidemiology. This is not an epidemiologic study. Corticosteroids. You're not assessing mainly the role of corticosteroids. You're looking at methotrexate. And similarly, you can have many other inappropriate keywords. So keywords should represent the content of your manuscript, be specific to your field or subfield, and may be used by journals to identify appropriate reviewers for your paper. And it's also preferable to use medical subject headings for keywords. So what are these medical subject headings? If you go to the PubMed website, the new PubMed website, which all of you must have seen now, you go to this section called as advanced, and then go on to the advanced search builder, go to the all fields and select mesh terms. Here you can identify mesh terms that are suitable for your manuscript. For example, if you are looking at ischemic heart disease, the appropriate mesh term is coronary artery disease, and various different permutations and combinations like coronary arteriosclerosis, coronary atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis coronary, atherosclerosis coronary could also be alternatively used. These help the database to understand that your article is relevant to this particular area. Referencing styles, I don't want to spend too much of time on this because the most important thing in references is refer to the instructions of the journal and accordingly format the references. There are broadly two styles, the Vancouver style or numeric referencing, wherein you have the authors followed by the title of the paper, the journal name, the year, volume, issue, and page number. But there are various variations of the Vancouver style. There is, if somebody tells you put the references in the Vancouver style, that's a very vague statement because Vancouver style can have numerous variations. Harvard referencing style generally lists the author name, then the year of the publication, then the name of the article, and then the other citation details. But most important with respect to referencing styles is that you must always refer to journal instructions or previous papers in the same journal. And if you do not format references as per requirements, it provides an unprofessional appearance to whoever is reading your paper. Some journals nowadays do not require reference formatting. They say so categorically that in an initial submission, we do not require references to be formatted. So please check instructions of the journal carefully to understand what exactly they want. So to conclude, title, abstract keywords help to sell your paper to the appropriate audience, and be mindful of journal instructions for word limits of abstract, structured versus unstructured abstract, number of keywords, referencing style, etc. And it's very important to follow journal instructions so that you can submit a paper that's more like this rather than one that's more like this. Thank you. And any questions are most welcome.